Answer Todd first.
Good evening, folks, and welcome to tonight's Master Plan Update Steering Committee. Peter, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please?
Sure. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, tonight's committee business, we're going to go through minutes, meeting schedule, public input, and we're going to talk about the request for proposal, input from committee members, selection criteria, and one thing on here, Westford update, that won't occur tonight. Melissa's at work out in California, so when she's with us next meeting, we'll do that. Then we'll talk about next steps, and then we'll adjourn. So with that, minutes, anybody would like to offer us?
Could you pass along, Mr. Chairman, those
Oh,
copies?
sure can. The pile that you walked by as you came in the room.
Exactly. I was disoriented, as you might recall.
Paul, I did notice a couple of just typos in here.
Copy the minutes?
Other than that, I thought they were fine.
All right, what you can do, because Maren will help us, annotate those, and we can make the administrative corrections easily enough.
Yep.
Now, I do need a volunteer this evening.
What's the mission? Sorry.
Everyone steps
We don't fly
backwards.
into Syria for nothing.
This wasn't a Three Stooges moment.
Did anybody notice who may be missing this evening?
Lindsay?
That's one.
Melissa?
Maren.
Maren.
Maren's absent, because Maren's on vacation back in her home state, Montana. So would somebody kindly take notes? And in all candor, I don't expect the level of rigor and discipline with which Maren does.
Mr. Chairman,
But I'm told we have a clerk.
I think it's me. I won't even put up a fight, I'll say sure.
Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, Paul.
Thank you.
So we can all read it.
All right, folks ready on the minutes?
Well, I'm done.
Have you seen my writing?
All right, let's take a motion on the minutes.
I move we accept the minutes of August 25, 2015.
With administrative corrections to be submitted by Gary. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any conversation? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the meeting schedule. Last time we talked, and Maren had put out a proposed schedule, and we asked you to check your calendars. Does anybody have any objections to that schedule that Maren sent to us? On or about...
Is this one right? Paul, is this one here?
Yeah, well, she actually sent an email out on the 26th.
Okay.
That's the one I'm referencing.
No objections,
All right, I'll write down
and I appreciate, I know that was done somewhat to accommodate me, because the FinCom and Master Plan oftentimes conflict, so I appreciate you doing that.
I'll just read down the list. September 15, that's tonight. And all rooms will be room 103, except when I say otherwise. September 29, October 6, otherwise. Room 307 up here. And then all the rest will be 103. October 20, November 3, November 24, we'll come back to that because that's Thanksgiving week. December 8, December 22, January 5, January 19, February 2, February 16. Okay, other than Thanksgiving week, does anybody have any concerns on those other dates?
Other than my absence on the February ones.
You know,
December 22nd, we probably should schedule it, but understand that it's may just not be worth doing, depending upon what the agenda is that day.
I'll be in New York
which one?
on December 22nd and November 24th.
Okay, so you're making Gary's and my point. Well done, John. Do you want to meet Thanksgiving week, folks?
No.
I have no issue with Thanksgiving.
Okay. So,
When's Elvis's birthday? Because we can't work.
January 8th.
Yeah, well, I can't meet on January 8th.
all right, that's fine, because that's not one of the scheduled dates. But
That's Elvis's birthday.
we'll note that in the minutes. Peter can
Carol.
meet January 8th. Okay, so November 24th, we'll skip. As we go forward over the next few weeks, next meetings, we'll see if we do want a second meeting in November on how things are going, okay? But at the very least, right now, and then, Gary, as you said, on the 22nd of December, let's hold on that for now, keep it on the schedule.
Yeah, I agree.
And, so- Okey-doke. Public input. The vast public. I think. Okay, RFP update. Has everybody had an opportunity, and I really expect yes, to have seen what Maren had sent out? Okay, good. All right, now, Gary sent some updates last night, and I put that out this morning to you
That's
all.
that 25th, dated 25th.
So I'm going to start this way, if you're all inclined to do that. Anything that's administrative, leave that aside for the moment, because maybe as we go through something of substance, it may eliminate the administrative minutia of a particular paragraph. But I'd like to go to the substance, and then anything that is administrative, like a renumbering and indentation, a uppercase, lowercase issue, we'll get to that. Red, RED versus READ, spelling and things like that, homophones, we'll just,
Yeah, the other two items that should be, that and the
yes, Mr. Glavy.
agenda too, please.
Oh, certainly, Mr. Glavy. It's a pleasure having you this evening here, Mr.
Yeah, I
Glavy.
wasn't partially ill-prepared, I was fully ill-prepared over here. Anyone need any of these?
So, and then I think the way we like to do that is let's just start at the beginning. And I'd like to we'll go down paragraph by paragraph. And if you have a comment, let's speak to that. And then, one of my questions would be to you too, have you submitted your comments to Maren? And if the answer is no, that's okay, because maybe it becomes OBE by the discussion we have this evening, any particular comment. And if we'd like to retain it, we'll get it back in. Go ahead.
We're going to include Gary's comments as well?
Oh, Gary gets to speak to them, yes.
Yeah, great. That's
As we go through the paragraphs.
Great.
And what I did is I actually combined Gary's. And I did word compare. Everybody knows how to do that, yes? Using Microsoft Word, comparing documents. Okay. All right.
Sorry, Paul, compare with what, the original 25th August version?
Yeah, with yours.
Okay.
It just made it easy for me personally.
Oh, I see, okay.
So as I speak to anything. All right. Title page. It's going to be this basic. Anything on the title page? There are none. Table of contents. As we go through it, if something requires a change in the table of contents, we'll do that. The legal notice. The lawyer's taking a look at that, so I want to take for the moment that that's correct. Project background.
Yeah, I had a comment, I think it's on an item that Michael had proposed as an organizing theme on town economics, and my personal opinion was I didn't think it was necessary to have an organizing theme to the master plan, and I didn't like the term town economics. I know you're trying to get at, Michael, with it, but I just didn't think, as I mentioned in my comments, I didn't think it would really resonate, and I think it's not necessary.
I guess sum up? If you
Thoughts, yeah?
Yeah. I really appreciate your comment, and I'm glad that you did what you did. In fact, you helped out a great deal, and here's why. If you look at the Milton RFP that you used as your sort of inspiration, and if you look at the list of items that they consider to be primary concern, 95% of them are economic, that is straight transaction economics, and the other small percentage, although it should be larger given Milton, I know Milton, is basically social capital. They have a problem with their diversity in their town, and they're not doing a great job communicating it. So you sort of, although you said you didn't think it was good to have an organizing theme, Milton has one. They don't call it that. The second thing is, and it rather struck me in some of the comments, is that if you look at not only the original master plan that we're trying to do, and also if you look at all the town meetings, the minutes from it, the warrants, the meeting for the planning, FinCom, some of the, shall we say, the make-or-break committees in town, plus others that you would not consider, most all of them deal directly with economics. Where does the money, here's something we want to do, here's where the money's coming from. And you can go down the list, and it's almost inescapable. And instead of playing games, that is where, maybe the wordsmithing could be better, but as far as I can make out, it's like, other than the fact that the town does have a revenue versus cost issue, a very deep one, and has, thanks to the Selectmen and the FinCom and a few others, we're getting our hands on it, but we're still behind the 8 ball. So, and the other, I guess, the larger issue for me is, it's not so much what we present to the public, it's what we present to the consultant. What's in the consultant's head? What's the guiding force that says, what does this town see as being, staring in its face? And it's more of a guide for the consultant. And it's going to be up to the consultant, as far as I'm concerned, to decide how best to communicate this to the choices to the public. I'll give you an example. It's been known since the 70s and 80s, where this was first studied both in the government setting and then later for business. And if you want to find out more about this, because it took a while, but there's something called the Association for Planners for the U.S., and there's about 3 or 4 different organizations. They all sort of have clustered around it. But it turns out that if you offer the public, ask them the open-ended question, what do you want this town to be, as you indicated in your commentary, you will get back lots of opinions, maybe, but they are practically, as most of them say, of little functional value, because they are not necessarily consensus, they're opinions. And the most successful plans, 90% of the successful plans that they get implemented come up with, here are the 4 items hot on our list. This costs X, this costs Y, this costs Z. During the polling, the consultant will ask, which of these 3 do you like? And look at the costs and tell them which prioritize. And as they go through the polling and data collection, whether it's done informally or formally, that's when the consensus, that's when the people in town begin responding with something that's actionable. And you only do that around economics. There is, since this is our plan is going to be a political document, it's a policy-forming document, we have to also give a guideline, the plan has to provide a guideline to the folks who are elected to office and appointed to boards. What do we follow? And there's increasing consciousness in town among many of the committees about economic issues, but as far as I can make out, making it explicit, I think, will make it more functional and useful for everyone. Now, how it's explained in the end to the broadest group of people, we could wordsmith it to death. But and also I believe that town people really are interested in economics, because next to open space and land and housing, which are, by the way, all economic, taxes. That's economics. And the other one, I freely will, also say the other one is basically social capital, how we interact with each other, the rules of civility, how we get along. That kind of material is important as far as I can make out. So I really appreciate your comments, but I think you supported the approach of having the plan at least have a guiding light, as it were. And that's the long and the short of it.
Let me do this. I want to get Mike and Rich caught up real fast. Where we are, we
And they
started
should be here
looking
on
at-
time.
Okay, good. And Peter makes a good point, but that's all right.
You're wasting my
We're on the
time.
organizing theme of town economics, and Gary had some thoughts on it, and we got that out to you all this morning. If you had an opportunity to see it, if not, we'll work through it. Gary just presented, and Mike presented the reason why he thinks it's a good idea, so that's where we are at this point right now. So we're on page, what is it? 4.
Yeah.
The draft RFP, town economics. Gary.
Well, I've kind of made an opening statement regarding it. I guess I would open it to others to consider. I understand, just a quick comment, Michael, as to some of the points you made. I understand that this document is directed to the contractor or the firm, not to necessarily to the general public. But it is, it is our attempt to try to let them know what's driving this and what is the what the key, what we're looking for as a product. I don't dispute that economics touches every single aspect of, a lot of the things we talked about here. So it could be a matter of semantics. I just thought that there was a lot to this paragraph that was more than, that, I guess, wasn't clear, and if I'm a consultant, I thought it would be maybe, there's a lot of, I think this paragraph was written when you wrote it as like a defense as to why you think this is a good idea as an organizing theme, and a lot of the statements, a lot of the wording is pretty much the same as that piece. Some of the things you articulated, indicating, making decisions based upon economics and having quantitative assessments and those kind of things, maybe we can get something that is more to the point you articulated versus how it's worded in here.
Do you have any suggestions? Because when I was here when we talked about the economics part of it.
Yeah.
And it really is about economics. We all pay our taxes. And how do those taxes get where they are?
But I don't think when I signed up for the master plan piece here, it was an attempt to us to say, what's our vision for where the town is? What are the things we like about this town? How do we see us navigating through the continual conflicts we have with development and taxes and smart planning and making sure that we don't have developments that we don't really think of. So I think it's more than economics. I mean, I think economics are a big element to it, but it's like, what do we want to be and how do we want to get there?
It absolutely is more than economics. But economics is where it begins, because without funding, you got nothing. You don't
Can
have any
I
projects.
say something? I'm just reading this for the first time, okay?
Yeah.
So I read this town economics organizing theme, and all of a sudden, in my head, right away, I came up with small business. That's just, I'm not so read as you guys are on town functions, but when I read this,
Yeah.
I kept reading it, and all of a sudden, I'm sitting there getting confused.
But the town is
I wanna
a
back up.
business.
No, I understand based on
Back up
you
one
just
second,
said
if I
that
may.
right now, and I understand, I concur, and I agree. But as somebody from the street, reading this, I think they're going to get confused.
All right, but I want to, first off, we did agree town economics was an organizing theme
Right.
of the update steering committee.
This is okay
Okay,
for the
I
contractor.
want to make sure that we're all,
Yeah.
we agree to that, and if not, where do we lose the bubble? Sometime back, as an organizing theme, we did come up with, whether it belongs in this document this way or not, can certainly be debated, but I want to make sure we're at the very least, do we all concur that we agree town economics was an organizing theme?
I
I
wasn't at that meeting,
concur,
so I
but if
missed
it
that one,
goes to
so.
the general public, I think it
No,
might
I'm
be a
okay, I
little
want to,
confusing.
it's one step at a time.
Okay.
Do we, as a committee, concur that we agreed that was going to be the organizing theme?
I don't know what organizing thing meant. I consider it a high priority, so I don't know. I was not at the last meeting in August, nor was I at the last meeting of the subcommittee, but I'll raise the same objections I'd raised before to form. I agree with this message, but I think it's misplaced here for a couple of reasons. One is, I think, to agree with John, it very well will confuse the potential applicant to say, oh, they want an economic development plan. But I think that in of itself is, that's the prism they want everything seen through, which raises a second issue is, the town hasn't been asked that yet. I feel strongly that that should be an organizing principle. I agree with the points that Mike raises, that Rich seconds. It is central to everything, but I think that needs to come out in the wash. If that's the strong argument, then I think that needs to arise through people's advocacy of, and then in consideration of the evidence, and then to be debated and agreed upon, rather than the public told right before we start, this is it. And I say that as someone who has pushed for the creation of the Economic Development Committee, serves on it, and thinks that we are behind on a lot of those issues. So I think this sort of, the importance of this topic is right on the money, but for the purposes of an RFQ or an RFP, I don't think it's correct. I thought we might have some of this language as one of the goals down below, where at least it's seen in context of other considerations. And I that's what I was kind of expecting out of a draft, was that we would have something down there, one of those 9 items, and wherever it's appropriate, have something that says,
Excuse me, Paul, you were at the meetings that we had in the subcommittee.
I missed one of them, the last
Not the,
one. Yeah.
I don't mind you disagreeing, this is
Yeah.
not the issue, okay? But during the course of the meetings, and I want to separate, for me at least, 2 issues. I have no problem with more wordsmithing so that the term economics doesn't cause people fear or
Isn't the
cause
term-
their eyes to glaze over. But to me, when you talk about this being voted on by the town, it's like saying the town should be voting on sunrise and sunset.
I don't think
They-
that that's
they come
comparable.
anyway.
No.
It's what they talk about, it's what they're, the school, there isn't a single aspect of this town that isn't thoroughly embedded in.
You know what, I agree with that argument, but I don't think that that is self-evident at the beginning of a planning process.
But this is, now, this document is for the consultant,
Right.
and it helps guide the consultant in a direction.
Well, the consultant won't be the only people to read it. The general public will as well, and they're going to see that a decision was made here to put a stamp on this in a particular direction, and we will suffer consequences down the road with anybody who objects to things that we agree on. This thing was already decided in advance. That will be the price we pay when we go to advocate for something later on.
What's the purpose of a steering committee?
Okay, and I understand your question. What I'd like is an alternative proposed.
I would rather see language that puts this, you know, a reduction of this down as one of those 9 topic items, and I'll accept anyone else's language on that, but maybe just, you know, a sentence just as one of those. You know, a major early identified concern of the Master Plan Study Committee is the primacy of town economics as a, you know, all-encompassing factor that affects all other things, and we want to make sure that the consultant is, you know, mindful of that while developing their plan. Something like that as one of those.
That's perfect.
Okay, well,
But I agree with Paul that I think it's more appropriate to include it in the areas that are applicable to, as opposed to, second paragraph, this is.
But may I ask, what will allow us to, or allow the planner to connect housing, schools, open space? What will allow them to connect those so that we stop siloing all the different parts?
2 things, including that language in there, and 2, our verbal direction on that score, I would
If
think.
they're good, I think they wouldn't need that to connect the dots very hard. I mean, I think they should know how to do that. I mean, if they're coming to this, having done these before, I sure as heck hope that they would have that ability to.
And I would throw out, too, that the siloing is not the fault of a consultant who's helping you develop the master plan. The siloing is the fault of the town's government and populace executing, or not, as the case may be, the master plan.
Do we think that as we, at least as currently worded in this document, that the town economics, in quotations, as that organizing theme, is self-evident?
No. Not to the public.
So there's this document, so that by having that organizing theme listed, and the rest of this document doesn't support that organizing theme, is what you're telling me then?
I'm not saying that, I just think.
In other words, it
that-
almost as a topic sentence, the outline, the town is, or excuse me, the committee's outline, town economics is the organizing theme. And then the rest of this proposal does not support that topic sentence.
I think that's a different issue, Paul. I think there are issues with the RFP right now where it does jump around and.
Okay, that's an organizing
that's-
thing.
But,
But if we think town, if, just for the moment, if we thought town economics was the organizing theme, and we have that topic sentence, and then the rest of the 13 pages do nothing to support that organizing theme, we have the wrong organizing theme, or if we thought that was the right organizing theme, we wrote this thing poorly. So no, everything in here should support that if that's our organizing theme, and that's what we're trying to get.
Well, again, we're trying to put something together so we can have somebody come in here and help us design our town to where we want it to go. Once they come in, regardless whether we have economics as one of the very first things, even though, again, it is a driving force in all of our lives, no matter how we look at it, we can hopefully get some input from the population as a whole, so it's not just us 9, 10, and 11 people at a time. I don't see that word being in there is that giant of an issue just yet. We've already spent 20 minutes speaking about whether that's in there or not, and I think we need to move on.
John, would you think that if you
But I agree
added more words there,
Terrifically with you also.
like economics, open space, quality of life, is that what you want to see there in that first sentence? Is more items in that?
I think if you include all those items and then say this is all related to economics, or somehow to tie it, but to jump right into MSCP has outlined town economics right off the bat like that, I'm sort of like, I was confused. I had to look back to the front page. Is this the finance committee? It was, eventually you can define that. I think if you turn the paragraph upside down,
We need to provide a roadmap,
I know.
and we need to design that, we need to tell them what that roadmap, where it begins and where we want to see it.
Yeah, if this goes to a professional, no problem, but if you go to the general public, it will confuse them.
Well, I
Remember,
would
the
rather
purpose of
see
this
us.
document.
Right.
This purpose of the document, certainly the general public's important in this, the whole
Right.
town. And what this is a very directed document to a consultant. This is what we want to achieve. This is what we want you to do for us here in the town. It communicates for sure, and to Mike's point about a steering committee, I mean, it's purposely called a steering committee because we're steering the ship, so to speak. This is going to get us a consultant on board that knows what we want done. And then it's going to go, and with that consultant on board, he will be taking the inputs from the entire town as to how do we want to achieve the things that the town wants. I'm not so sure we're getting wrapped up a little too tightly on this one. Whether or not we have town economics in there, I could almost be agnostic in all candor, because if the document's not saying town economics, then it's a bad topic sentence.
No,
Or it's poorly
to your
written.
point on that, it wasn't my point of objection, but to answer your question, the rest of the document doesn't support that paragraph. The rest of the document reflects traditional master plan language and, general list of topics. There's some tweaking to reflect, our input, this group's input at various points, and the core elements list on, whatever it is, page 8, and the goals and status on page 4, but other than that, it's, and even in those lists, economics is not designed to, or not shown to be primary. Maybe it should be. Either it's going to be consistent or it's not. And I just continue to think that that's an important topic, important enough to be one of our priorities listed below, but I don't believe that paragraph at all belongs in project background.
Picking up on what you just said, Paul, I agree with you that there are parts of the rest of the document that do not refer back to it, and I have some comments, but I was waiting to get to the page, but I think the qualifications for the consultant, whoever she is, that we bring in, has got to be someone who's up to date in the field, and that means it can't be someone who last confrontation with economics is necessarily equated with, we're talking, business.
Well,
And
why
so
is this
it's
the only
sort
way to
of-
do, why is this the only way to do that?
Let me offer this, because to Peter's point, Mike, one second. To Peter's point, because we can talk for a long time on this, let's continue going through the document, because as I look at the comments, I don't know there's a heck of a lot of substance. There's some ideas on how to express some things a little bit differently, but I think we're all pretty much in the same direction as to what we want the document to do. Let's go through that, see what emerges from it, and then perhaps whether it's an organizing theme or an opening statement that captures that and provides that topic sentence, so that at the first, few paragraphs or so, the consultant already has a pretty good idea. Here's the direction Littleton wants to go in, and now here are the specific directions on how Littleton get there. Does that work for everybody?
We want to be intending
Okay.
how we get there.
All right, so,
I like that.
all right, Gary, you were on current project goals and status, right? Was your next comment?
Yeah. Well, I did have a comment as to, we referenced some previous reports at the end of project background.
Okay.
And I understood there was recent product from the Economic Development Committee that I think should also be referenced, should it not?
There is some, isn't there, Paul?
Yeah, our most recent report was like May or so.
Yeah, could you just capture that then, please? And so we can put the correct citation in there? Okay.
Right here, just indicate, we referenced some relatively recent documents that they should work off of, and I thought the Economic Development Committee report should be included in there.
All right. Continuing, so now we actually are in current project goals. And the first item, number 1, about originality.
Yeah, I just didn't think that should be the number 1 priority. I mean, it's a master plan, I'm not expecting a Scorsese movie. It's
I'm sorry, I didn't hear what you said. You're not expecting...
Scorsese movie. I mean, I'm not expecting an artistic piece here. I'm expecting a relatively pragmatic element of it's not sexy at all. It is a master plan.
I don't care where that item gets listed, but my point here, and it's funny, I was going to make a proposed change to it anyways. I don't think this fleshes out what we're looking for here. I was going to amend that sentence to say a high degree of originality in process, approach, considered alternatives, and final product. And
That's a little more specific. I mean, we
Yeah.
definitely want to get to.
And I don't care where those...
Everybody content with the way Paul just said that?
Yep.
Paul, write that down.
All
And
right,
then
but
submit,
as I
please.
say, if Gary wants to place things in different order, I have no objection to that, but that caught my eye originally too. I promoted the idea of originality, but it's original about their approach to the process and not being hidebound to certain existing formats, although we may end up there. I just want to make sure we encourage their
right.
being original.
Have we covered that point?
I hope so.
Sure, and I think, and I think a general comment I had is that I think it was very productive when we had the other towns in here to talk about how they did things. And I think it was repeated multiple times that the most important trait, this is from Mrs. Colette of Groton, the most important trait that we're going to have in hiring a firm is their public facilitation and engagement skills. And you'll see that as a recurring theme in my comments, is that if we agree that that's a key element, we should make sure that's an emphasis in what we put together.
And you did
in
nail
here.
that as one of the
And
comments.
that kind of was talked to, about Paul's point about originality and how we do that.
Okay. All right, so now we've got 2, 3, 4, 5 through 9. Anybody have any comments?
Just to stipulate that if we have not finished the discussion up above, that if the language is not included up there about economics, that some reduction of that should appear in this list somewhere.
Does everybody concur with that?
One way or the other. If it's not going to, if it is up there, fine. If it isn't, then it ought to be down here.
There's not a personal thing for me. I mean, I don't care. My main concern is with making sure the consultant and eventually the town gets the message and acts on it. What I'm very worried about is redoing what's being done in a lot of the other towns and failing. We can't afford the failure, and that is that we'll have a consultant who basically gives us what she thinks we want, as opposed to what's really out there. And unless we give them or her a key that says, we want you to go out and find out what's really out there. I mean, you mentioned many times about, and you've mentioned many times about the decline in, I'll call it the social capital of the town. Okay. We have to be able to say something about that to the consultants as we see this as a growing issue. I'm just giving this as an example.
You know what, because oftentimes, like at the federal level, and I'm just going to use the example for the moment, is the RFP hits the street, and then by federal law, you can't talk to the contractors. Everything's written, contractor may write a question, you can answer that question, but that answer goes to everybody who is putting a bid in, so all the possible bidders. And then it almost stops in the bid arrives, and you open up and you evaluate it, and you award based on the score, in the simplest of terms. That's not what's going to happen here. We're going to get someone on contract, and that's really almost step one now. And they're going to work with us in the entire town. So the things that you're concerned about being fleshed out, I think that's how they get fleshed out. This doesn't necessarily tease it out of the consultant from the get-go.
No.
Whoever wins, we will have looked at, what have we presented up to this point? What has that person told us they can do? What have they demonstrated to other towns that they can do? And that track record, past performance. And we'll be looking at that, and then we'll be working integrally with them going forward to produce the document. So I think a lot of what you're asking for, Mike, gets to get done, if we all, as a town now, do a good job, the focus groups, the visioning, the objectives, the goal settings, on and on, and in that writing process. And I think that's where your main concerns get teased out.
And the other thing that I would throw out there is, my concern is that if you spoon feed them in this document exactly what you're looking for, they will tell you they're going to do it because they know that's the best way to get the contract. You need to put suggestions in place and keywords and key terms with the ultimate hope that they will respond to that in the proposal, and then you'll be confident that, oh, you understood what I meant without me telling you exactly, and that will give me, anyway, more confidence that they're actually going to execute on those points, rather than me telling them soup to nuts exactly what I want. At that point, I could have just gone and done it myself.
But see,
Sorry, Richard, go ahead.
To your point, Mike, when we interview whoever we're going to interview, there'll be several people we're going to interview, and on the night they come in, we're going to listen to what they say, and hopefully they're going to tell us how they understand our RFP, and how they are going to, with examples, going
Right.
to meet
Exactly.
our requests. Now, we can tell them exactly what we want to say,
Right.
but that's not going to reflect in what they tell us how they're going to do.
But my
Respond to
concern
what we're
is
gonna
that the
say.
more detailed we are, and if we get too detailed, they're going to tailor their proposal and their presentation so that it sounds so beautiful, why would we say no?
But
I want them to figure it out on their own a little bit, and I want them to be creative enough to understand what we're saying without us.
You see, when we see them that night, we'll be able to see, we'll be able to.
Exactly, but that's why I want this to be somewhat general in tone and not be overly specific, because, as Paul indicated, we will flesh all of that out through the iterative process of executing the master plan creation.
Yeah, I don't think.
I don't think the evidence
Would be
supports your assertion about how the consultants who work in this field work. Okay. What is uncovered in the commercial literature of their field and the institutes is that as professionals, if they're really professionals, what they're really looking for, and we're not the only steering committee that's ever floated across the world here, what they're really looking for is the collective wisdom, as it were, of the steering committee to basically say, here's what we see as the sages, supposedly. This is what we see as some problem areas or areas of interest in the town. And we want you to take these into account when you go out there and look. And it's that gives them the stimulus, basically, not necessarily to know exactly what to do, but basically to get some idea. It cuts down the amount of, as it were, time and money. Because if we're asking them, for example, to do an outreach program, and they have to budget it, how much money of our total, shall we say, fund are they going to spend on outreach? That's what's going to be whizzing in their mind, okay? And if we say to them, look, these are some of the major issues in town, whether it's open space or economics, they'll know it tells them right off the bat, this is how I'm going to have to be able to spend this money. This is how I'm going to budget.
Yeah, you're supporting exactly my point. I'm not suggesting that you don't give them direction.
Yeah.
I'm just suggesting that the level of detail in the direction is a line that you need to balance out. Otherwise, if you give them too much detail, they're going to tell you exactly what you want to hear.
Where is this giving them enough detail?
I'm not suggesting that it is. I'm suggesting that as we debate the level of detail, just to keep that in mind, that there needs to be a stop, where we just say, enough's enough.
I agree.
We don't need to tell them anymore for a variety of reasons.
And I think most of this document at the moment contains enough generalities to help them out. But I will again repeat that somewhere in the line, I would prefer to see a pretty heavy emphasis that we're not unconscious. We know.
Oh, for sure.
We know the nature of our economic status.
I'll come back to your consciousness thing in a sec. Peter?
Yeah.
All right, back to your consciousness statement then. Does the document capture a lot of that consciousness, to use your word there?
Until we get to, in the beginning it does, but I don't think we quite capture it. We don't tie up the opening paragraphs.
So let's say
later on,
that.
though. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Okay, so, again then, Roman numeral 2, 2 through 9. Anybody, any comments?
I made some
Yours is it?
in
Okay.
between, I don't know if you want to call them editorial or substantive, it's somewhere in between, probably. comments, so I guess this is probably the form for me to just restate them if someone's read them. I personally don't like the 30,000-foot view. I think it's terminology. I just thought that second item should, proposed rewording of that would say, a general overview of Littleton, its demographics, its opportunities, and its challenges, period.
But you see, I came up with that statement, and the reason I did that is because Littleton's not just here on the dot on the map. We are within the 495 belt. We're within eastern Massachusetts, and whoever comes to take a look at us has to consider, I would think, everything from Boston to Worcester, and from the Cape to New Hampshire when they're looking at Littleton. They can't just look at Littleton because we aren't just an island in the sea. We're part of this whole region, and we're affected by what takes place in Boston and down the Cape and up in New Hampshire.
Let me give you some specificity.
I didn't, what you just said, Richard, I didn't get that was in
Well, that's what I'm trying to, I think we need to pass along to this consultant.
We're part of the very least the 495 corridor, and the reason this is growing in some immediate importance is what who Baker has just recently appointed for, I'll just, as an example, biotech, and some of the comments made about the desire to begin moving, or begin looking at, broadly speaking, at the state in this part of the world as a place for some of that industry for manufacturing and otherwise.
All right. Renato, do you have any thoughts at this point?
No, I agree with Gary. I mean, the 30,000-foot view. Actually, I was thinking that it was like you're trying to take a picture or overview, a geographic overview, but not including like. Now I understand what Rick said. Like he wants to make it more entangled with all the region, and that's not explicit.
It's almost become jargon to use the comment, 30,000-foot review. In other words, you're looking at everything.
Yeah, I took it as a high level, just general.
How about if the word including the 495 corridor?
I think if I were to paraphrase, off the top of my head, to paraphrase Richard's statement is, address the needs and requirements of Littleton in the context of the eastern Massachusetts 495 Beltway and, whatever region.
All right, do this, please. Capture the words as you think has just been stated,
Yeah.
and let's submit those.
I would prefer, as you do that, a general approach other than, because if we're going to get specific, then when you say 495, that's an economic distinction, but if you're going to go environmental, we're actually in two watersheds, so, you'd have to say, well, then, is that our only region that we're a part of, the 495 belt? No, we're also in the Merrimack and the
Boston metro area. I mean, there's many designations
Well, that's
as
right.
to where
And
Littleton
for transportation
resides.
purposes, we actually get allied with Lowell,
right.
so, or Montechusett, so, I'd just say in the various regions that we're a part of.
Yeah.
Okay. Next one, Gary.
The next proposed edit was on item 7. It talks about a detailed and achievable implementation schedule or matrix, including alternatives. I would propose to enhance that by saying a detailed and achievable implementation plan with recommendations, priorities, and schedule for implementation, as well as different alternatives as applicable.
All right, everybody with that?
Yeah, that's good.
Perfect, write it down, done, my next.
That's good, Peter.
I propose adding an item, and maybe this, an itemization of capital improvement needs and priorities. I'd hope to see that as a product. Looking at.
Stay on that for a sec. Mike, that, I think, starts to hit some of your thoughts.
Yeah.
Okay, good. All right, continue, please.
I had, and then I proposed to scratch the
But to
last
that end,
item.
is that best not to, since we already have a capital plan, shouldn't that be referenced as one of the items up above there? I mean,
Do we have a
do
capital plan? Oh,
Yeah.
no, we did.
Okay, earlier on?
Yeah.
Okay, note that down, please, Paul.
Yeah. I mean, we don't want to be taking over the work of the capital.
No, well done. I understand I think I understand what you mean by this, just capital improvement in general, but we have a specific plan in place that we modify from time to time.
And we hired a consultant to help us put together maintenance plans and assess the
Okay.
building needs. and all
If
that.
that's already covered, then I can,
Well,
it could be withdrawn
Like
for
a lot-
sure.
A lot of these things are covered in some form, so I just want to distinguish between those areas where we have a housing
Yeah.
plan, an open space plan, we do in the
And
capital.
Paul,
plan.
reference the maintenance plan, too. That was great thought there.
And then I thought that the last item, provide specific planning metrics to quantify results was kind of redundant from item number 6.
Right, we said it earlier.
Okay, so good. Continue on?
I had nothing else on part 2,
All right, so,
except for the schedule.
in the schedule, we will modify, because we may not get this out on the street the day we thought we would, based on these conversations now, so that will modify the schedule.
Understand the dates, but the durations, I've not done this kind of procurement before with a local municipality, I acknowledge that, with Paul with more federal background, but I anticipate, if I'm a firm and I see that, I get the solicitation on September 29th, there is a briefing a week later, and then, so basically within 10 days, any questions that I'm going to have on this whole activity and process is due basically within 10 days of when I get it. I think that's a tall order for a firm to potentially identify everything they might have as
All
concerns.
right, so
within only
subcommittee
10
members
days.
that put the schedule on here,
I just thought it was maybe a little more time, or I thought, to go to the points that Michael and Richard were talking about and were having to do with giving them more information up front so we know what some of the challenges are. There's really lacking in terms of what are the specific challenges in Littleton. Not getting into what we want the answers to be, but what are the challenges. So if we help them in some of these areas of fleshing out where we want them to
I just want to get where
address.
the background to the schedule came from. Is this an industry standard that you just copied? Or it just seemed like a good idea?
No, it's basically from RFPs that I've written before, and it's synchronized to fall within the meeting decision. The decisions are synchronized to fall within the meeting dates that we have.
Okay.
On
I
the
would
calendar.
offer that the second reason is not the reason to drive the schedule, because we can always change our meeting dates, or just expand to the following meeting, so we give them another 2 weeks.
Yeah.
So, keeping with the meeting schedule if we wanted to do that, by throwing another 2 weeks into this process, does anybody have an objection?
At least another, I think just another week prior to the deadline for so many questions. I thought, just gives them a little more
Right.
time to have intelligent questions and do homework.
Especially given the time of year when that's happening, too.
Yeah, see, we're on a bi-weekly schedule, so a week really doesn't make any difference. If it's a day, it's 2 weeks.
All right, slip of 2 weeks. Everybody okay?
Sure.
Okay, next.
I feel like I'm hogging a conversation here, so.
Anybody else? Okay, so Ron,
Driving the conversation.
going.
Gary.
Ron, main paragraph, Roman numeral 4, proposal submission requirements. Introductory paragraph, 2 sentences, are they okay? Okay, number 1, technical proposal. Everything until we get down to D, scope of services. Okay? Gary?
I saw the term elements is what we were typically referring to the parts of the master plan, and so I just be consistent, that was all, just a consistency edit.
Okay. Continue.
Where is that one, Gary? I'm I
Third,
know it's in
second
here
bullet
somewhere,
under
but-
D,
trying to compare between my BlackBerry version and, yeah.
I was just trying to point out things
That's
that.
elements. Okay, thank you.
Use the same terminology for, if it's elements is what the pieces of the master plan are, then we should use that term consistently, in terms of core elements, as opposed to components.
Okay, thank you.
There's a missing verb, I thought, on the fourth bullet, I thought that, in the fifth bullet, we listed a number of the plans that must be consistent with some previous existing documents, and there's always a potential to miss something when you repeat something, when you itemize something, so I was
Just
going to
have one
suggest,
list.
just reference what the list that we provided in part 1.
Everybody okay?
Yeah,
Can't
absolutely.
lose this, no?
All right. Continue.
I've got your document, just working off it.
Okay. And I thought of a sentence indicating, one is, the plan shall specify the tools the consultant proposes to use for community outreach, since I thought that's a very big driver, what they want, I just want to know more about what they're proposing to do for community outreach.
You labeled these all in your version as comment 1 through 14, I think they were, right?
That's just how track changes works.
I know that, but I'm just saying is, for purposes of doing the minutes, I would like to, rather than writing down all the changes, now that I realize we're into it, we're going along with most of them, just to say adopt, change 7 of Gary's, and then attach your document as a part of the minutes.
Whatever works.
Okay.
It saves the scribe's hand a little bit.
Exactly.
Whatever
right,
works.
and-
Can I ask you a question? Just, the plan shall specify the tools used, okay? How does the consultant know what tools to use?
Aren't they going to be submitting a proposal that indicates their general approach to how they're going to execute this?
But, wait, general tools or tools? I'm not playing with words here, I'm trying to get at a point.
What I'm referring to by tools is the types of methodologies by which they would propose to do outreach.
Okay. How does a consultant know what tools to pick?
Hopefully he's
We're
done it
hiring them for
before.
their experience, so I would think that they would, I don't want to tell them what tools to use. I'm not specifying
I
the
agree.
tools.
Take a knife to a gunfight.
No, I mean,
I'm not sure your point, I'm not sure.
okay. Okay. The plan that we've got here, all right, goals and what I'm trying to do is tie your sentence here, tools, proposes to use consistent with the goals.
We're asking the consultant, this part of the document is their submittal requirements.
Yeah.
Part D indicates that they're going to propose a scope. We have given them general guidelines, and they're going to come back to us with a more defined, specific approach as to what they're going to do.
Yeah.
So as part of that scope of what they're going to do, I would like to see them outline some of the proposed methodologies they would advocate using for our town for community outreach.
Yes, you're repeating.
Yeah, but
I'm
could
asking-
those tools be,
That's what
whether they're
I'm
public
saying.
forums, surveys, questionnaires,
All right.
directed interviews?
Do we want
Are
to,
those tools in your mind?
no, that's to me, that's,
Okay, so
throwing it up in the
describe a
air.
tool then.
The tool, what I'm really asking here is, I'm asking you, did you have in mind, I'm asking what you have in mind. I mean, you have
What I
general
just
tools.
said, that's why I
In other
clarified.
words, general tools. You just repeated, just tools. And then he's going to be clever enough, she's going to be clever enough to figure out from this what tools could
I
be
knew
used.
exactly what Gary meant,
You know what I mean?
personally, yeah. I would have, and I would have assumed that the responses would be along the lines of what Paul just cited for that particular request. Different tools if we were asking for a different, type of different type of service. And Gary's point earlier in the meeting was that one of his focuses is on making sure that we get a good sense from the people that submit the proposals, the companies that submit the proposals, that they are going to do a good job at community outreach, because we've been told how important that is. So I don't have a particular problem with Gary wanting to put some verbiage in there relative to that specific thing that we're going to ask them to do, which I would assume they all do anyway. The question is, we just want to put an emphasis on that, correct?
In their scope to tell us what they're they're supposed to tell us how they're going to do this, and I want to see that addressed.
How about just adding methods and tools?
I don't care, if tools is the hangup, change the noun.
No. I was more interested in seeing how far you wanted to go with
Is
the
that acceptable,
outreach.
just to clarify methods and tools?
Methods and tools, yeah, just, go. All right.
Methodologies?
You over the tools thing now? No, I need to go to the bathroom again.
How'd you,
Keep going.
Okay. Just my 12 years of Catholic school, regular meetings with the Mpusc are to be included in the scope, not should be. It's an expectation that they're going to be there. I proposed adding a element to their proposal, which is to ask for the consultant's relevant experience and prior performance. We ask later on for the team members' relevant experience, and not knowing if this is going to be a firm or a one-person show or however they're going to do it, but I like to see both the experience of the firm doing the work and then the individuals later on doing the work. And so I'm just differentiating the experience of the firm versus the experience of individuals assigned.
I like that.
then wouldn't you just change F to read for the firm and all members of the team, for the principal firm?
It could be combined, but as long as it's clarified as to you want to see, because some people could have experience that are not with the
Yeah,
firm.
I'm with you on the point. I just think rather than adding another section, just modify the one that already addresses
It
it.
could go either way. It'd be two means to the same end. And I thought some time duration, I threw out 7 years, as to similar projects over some duration. I say 7, I just picked a number, could be 5, but I'm concerned about if you do something too short, then the proof's not in the pudding yet, because they've developed a plan, but we don't necessarily know how that they've completed it or started it.
Implementation, whether or not it works out.
So you're asking, you want them to have done something like this for 7 years, or within the last?
Don't give me
7
any more
years?
experience that's older than. Don't give me any experience that's older than 7 years.
Because even,
Oh, I see, I got you.
even once you get into 7,
Perfect, okay, fine.
the same people may not even be there, so the firm's experience becomes irrelevant almost.
That's what I said. So
Yeah.
I just threw a number out there for comment, discussion, what that number should be.
Yeah,
But
so
I think, I don't
5
want old stuff. I don't want something you did 10 years ago. It's irrelevant.
Yeah, I
You
agree.
really think it's irrelevant? That somebody did
For a
something pretty
firm?
good 10 years
For
ago?
a firm,
What if they were
think they're-
innovators in something that happened 10 years ago that's been copied by everybody? The guys who started doing it 5
I
years
sure
ago?
hope they've done it again since
Right,
then.
that's the thing, if they've innovated and it was that good, it'll still be in within the last 7 years. or
I don't know,
10
I guess
years.
I'd be inclined to let them sell themselves on what they think is their merits, rather than telling them we don't want to hear anything you did more than 7 years ago.
And we could go that way too. The better firms are going to have more relevant experience and the other ones will drop off.
Probably, that'll come out in the interviews. True.
Yep.
And I'll be honest with
You
you,
can also ignore it too, if you don't want to go beyond 7 years because you don't think it's relevant, that's your prerogative as an evaluator of the proposal.
Very specific, isn't it? Yeah.
All
It's
right, so
very
what do we wanna do with
specific
it,
as
folks?
to what we're looking for in terms of the qualifications of the firm, Michael. I'm not telling them how to do this. I'm just going to.
No, yeah, but I mean, I think the point's already been made, that we don't know what people are going to bring to the table, how old it is, how innovative it is, or was, and still is, for us.
And just, and I think if we put the limit, I mean, we can, even if it's older, maybe we can see what happened, or the results
This is
after
what I
10
was-
years.
This is what I was looking at when he said the 7 years. I want to see something you did 7 years, how you directed this town in particular, and these plans that you came up with 7 years ago.
Yeah, that's a valid point.
What did it give me today? Not just 5 years. I don't care if they go back 30 for crying out loud and say,
Yeah,
this is a plan that
Let's
these
take out
guys
the
went
prepositional
through,
phrase.
and this is the position that town is now in because they implemented these things. That's what I thought you were reaching for.
Right.
That's how I took it.
Are we in violent agreement on the year 7?
No, I think we'll just take out the phrase.
Yeah.
Just drop out any iteration. I think you just drop it out based upon the discussion here, which is really very good. Similar projects, I just put it on there to kind of put an outer limit as to how old the project should be. We're saying it doesn't necessarily apply, so we'll eliminate it.
Okay, where are we at now?
Little page we get out in the evaluation process.
Okay. Continue, Gary.
There is an element called relevant experience. As it's written right now in my comment, it talks about the team members' relevant experience. And I'm not sure how big this team's gonna be, but I was trying to emphasize the primary folks, that I want to see the relevant experience of the primary members of the consultant team. So, and not necessarily every single person who might be party to this.
So is your concern that there could be 10 or 15 people involved versus 3? And then my follow-up
I've
question would
not
be...
done this before, so I don't know how many.
Yeah, that was my follow-up question, would be to, Paul Glavy, who's been involved in this before, what do we typically expect to see?
I think some of our thought in having the initial language was that if they're going to be using somebody to do population projections, would like to know who that is, what subs they're going to be using.
Yeah.
If they're going to be using somebody who's their environmental expert, and they don't work for the principal team. They may well have a list of 10, but we want to kind of know, who they are. Some firm, that may not be their approach. They might do it all in-house. I don't know. But I think we were, in putting that language, the initial language in, members of the committee down there too, I think that was our concern, is that we didn't just want to get the principal's background and then a lot of their work be farmed out to subgroups and we don't know who they are.
That's fine. That's
Yeah.
fine. I mean, I can scratch it, for that's a very sound reason. And that's not, I've had contracts where I've had a team of evaluating qualifications, and the team member, it encompasses 30 different disciplines. And I don't honestly care about number 25 discipline, because it's not going to be a discriminator. So,
Right.
that had that kind of
I don't think we're
background.
gonna see that, are
We're
we?
probably not going to see that, so we
Right.
can take out the primary piece. And the other clarification of this, which goes to past performance is more of an indicator of a firm's experience, not an individual's experience, because the individual is more what the experience they have. You don't rate an individual.
Yeah,
So I
I
wanted
could
to
see getting
clarify
rid of
that.
that, get rid of prior performance.
Yeah.
That's kind of for us to judge.
That's right.
Yeah. Okay.
Were you there?
This is a painful process.
What number are you up to on your 14?
Okay, I'm now on the price proposal.
Yeah, I know it's written
And again,
differently.
I defer to those who are more experienced in this. I don't know if this is the place for it. But in the price proposal, we want to see a breakout of the fee and the services by task and hourly rates, et cetera. Do we want to see, I expect that they're going to make a guess as to what kind of meetings and how many meetings they're going to have, how many surveys they're going to do, that kind of thing. Would it be beneficial to them to break out an itemized cost of those things that we may want another survey of, or another meetings for, or something like that? So they identify in their proposal how much of what they think we need to get the job done, but if we decided we wanted to add another survey or something, just have it broken out as a unit item, so we can know what that cost.
Well, one of the meetings we had previously, I don't know if you were at it, they had geez, I can't remember who it was, but they come up with $75 an hour for a guy to go out and knock on doors and take a survey. You know, and at $75 an hour, that's $150,000 a year. And I said, I'll bloody my knuckles for $150,000 to do nothing but knock on doors. So, and to your point, yeah, I think I would like to see some of what exactly they propose to do and what's the cost associated with that.
Well, they do that, they do
Right.
that in that, but this would be like an add-on piece if we decide to go out and do a second or an additional thing.
What you're asking for is unit cost for each task.
Not for each task, for those things that, well, I probably should define it better. Maybe it should define what types of things they are.
But even if it was a unit cost for each task, why would we
We could
object?
still pick
why would
and
we
choose
necessarily
regardless.
object to that?
Like for, how much does it
They
cost
should be
for-
able to do that.
How much does it cost for each additional nighttime meeting?
Right.
How much does it
For
cost
example.
for each?
Right.
For
How many
example,
do they
And
put in there?
I know you're saying, I don't want to make them do it for everything because it might not be relevant, but so what? Make them do it anyway.
Yeah.
It's not going to kill them. And then we know.
Well,
Better know up front than out back.
to a point, I think you're right. I think we should have a statement in there asking for the number of meetings that they anticipate to have, night meetings, and the unit cost for additional night meetings.
Yeah.
In addition to all the other things.
Well, this is to be the big one.
Well,
Really? How do we know that?
We have this crystal ball.
Oh,
All right, to what degree of granularity do you want unit costs? That's what this boils down to.
Yeah, that's,
how I understand we're going to get a proposal as to, we think to do their process, we're going to take this many man-hours, we're going to need to have so many surveys, we're going to have so many meetings, and they're going to put that in their price proposal, that we're going to say, their bottom line is X, right? And so, I don't want to take away from that at all. It should be a lump sum number as to what that number is, with us seeing how they built that number. What we can do is identify those items that I think are most likely that we would potentially add as additional services, which are most likely going to be, like Richard said, meetings. We can just do meetings if you wanted to, nightly forums or meetings or something like that, and just say, give us a breakout of what that cost would be. Those the only things?
survey taking?
Back me up, we're going to do firm fixed price? Is that our intent? It's not cost plus.
No, it's not cost plus.
budget, right?
Well,
Yeah.
we have a certain amount of money with that to
Yeah, right.
operate. And cost plus, you could go and then,
Yeah, of course, we'd be here forever, yes.
but and that certainly gets to the acquisition strategy,
That'll be higher.
but I think we're over leaning towards a firm fixed price. Now, firm fixed price, certainly there's a bottom line, and there's elements to the bottom line But to say, well, your point about another meeting, and it's $150 to have another night meeting, let's just say. Well, the thing is, if we've already agreed that for what they propose is X number of dollars, how much they charge for another night meeting is irrelevant.
That's right. No, you're absolutely right. And if you ask for that, then it's assumed that we're going to be, even though it's a fixed price, we're expecting extra
For the
costs.
fixed price, they should propose enough, and just run with the night meeting example, enough night meetings to capture what's necessary to be able to write a good plan for us.
If we leave it that broad, they'll tell us how many night meetings they're going to include.
Yeah.
I certainly hope that they're going to tell us how many.
But that, if you leave it broad.
But you
get
see the
that.
point PJ's making, which is, while it would be interesting information, it might be moot because we wouldn't really be able to do anything about it anyway,
Well-
based on the way we're currently constrained and the way we're asking them to submit the bid.
Well, by the nature of the contract, is it not we're coming to an agreement as to, they're proposing $150,000, and we see the backup, so it includes 10 meetings. If we end up needing 12, is that not a basis for an equitable adjustment? Or is that a means to the end and it's in noise? How does it work in these contracts?
Yeah, you talking about Jim Mackin and stuff.
I'm sorry?
The government estimate, where you look at something and to make this proposals even.
No, I'm not talking about that, I'm just talking about, this is, their price is being accepted with the associated backup.
You can do it either way. You can hold their feet to the fire if they don't get the job done in 10 meetings. Or you can agree to pay them additional meetings if.
Or conceivably, you could rob Peter to pay Paul and not do something else that you feel is not as required
Yeah.
in order to get the benefit of something you think is more meaningful.
I mean, I don't think, by not including, I'm going to withdraw this, by not including it, doesn't mean we can't entertain and find out, based upon their backup, what a meeting costs.
That's
and
kind of what I'm
negotiate it.
thinking about. It's like, if it really became an issue, we could probably ferret it out and deal with it without having it
I think that's
addressed
fine.
under this initial
You know,
effort.
can I just suggest something? I
Yes.
think this language was included by Bonnie as the town's procurement officer. Could we just maybe raise that point to her and see if she has input
I'm going
on
to
it?
withdraw it.
Well, I mean, if it's a point raised worth, discussing, I don't know whether she has any thoughts on that. I mean, she's the procurement
I
officer.
think Gary's point is that would be fine if he was really insistent on doing it, but if he's not, then it becomes sort of just, becomes edifying but not relevant.
All right.
It doesn't mean the door's closed later.
Do you want D in there?
D would drop out if it's what.
Well, here's the other thing, that because we do have options to go back for more money, and if we've already got it outlined as to what they would propose for the additionals.
Right.
And let's say consensus-wise, with the consultant, we came, said, 2 more meetings does it. And we go back and ask for money for 2 more meetings.
That's the benefit of having an already agreed upon in
Yeah.
their proposal price. That's the benefit of having an option unit price item.
Now, can you, let's say you have a budget, but you propose something a little bit less so that you have a buffer. They have to come to us, or if it runs over a certain amount, then it comes up to our decision, where we vote on to amend the budget to extend a little, but you have a buffer. I don't know, I don't run the government contract, so,
No, it's not about a
The-
buffer. It's about, we've got the proposal there,
right.
and they bid to it, but then they've also put some unit prices in there.
No, but
It's information.
our budget is such that we let the proposal have it slightly less than the budget, but you have a little buffer.
Yeah, but
so you
when
don't
say a
exceed
little
the
buffer,
budget.
Slightly,
Yeah.
everybody at this table has a different definition of slightly, a little buffer.
Yeah,
What we're gonna do is, we know what the budget is, there's a maximum, and we're gonna get proposals, and we're gonna go for the best value within the budget available to us.
yeah, and we can't hide those numbers from the proposals. They'll find those numbers out.
Republic.
Okay, so if it goes over, then what the process is,
Well, one is,
It's as open
you
as it
reject
can.
all bids, and
Right.
start over again.
no, you already approved the bid, but now you need extra meeting, or
Well, that's
They
the
only
only,
get what
getting
is
something
approved.
wrong in.
all right, you're chopping 2 different.
Sue them, they sue us,
Okay.
somebody sues.
I think, to your point, is that we have so much money authorized, we shouldn't award a contract that's right up that limit. We should allow for some contingencies to happen. So, and we all know what's been authorized, whatever the number is, $213,000, whatever it is. I sure was hoping, we should award a contract for 212, because then that doesn't give us any latitude to deal with changes.
150 for this RFP.
Okay,
Let's-
so 150.
Okay, so-
Don't award a 149, because it gives us no latitude for stuff that might happen in that case.
I caution on making that sort of preemptive statement, because if 149 was the best value available, and we looked at all the proposals, I wouldn't say, well, gee, I want to have a buffer, so let's go with the 135, and it's, margins less effective for us. So I'd say no preemptive decisions,
That's,
because that's a bit about showing cards, too.
we'll put it this way, I think if we did that, then we should go to public meeting and ask for some money to kind of have on hand in case that comes later, so we're not
And that
completely
was my point.
frozen and stopped.
About having a price list, if you will,
Yeah.
item menu, and each item is priced out, that we can go, because, use that example again, 2 more night meetings, at $300 a night meeting.
I'll go with the Colleen rule. That's all you get, that's all you're getting.
Well, that's possible, too.
There's a downside to that, though, Peter.
Oh,
Because-
they signed on for the ride.
All right, let's get into the acquisition strategy.
Yeah.
Let's stick with the proposal for now and continue on. I'm inclined to leave the D paragraph in there to get that itemization. And it's
Fine.
information only, and we can deal with it or not deal with it later on. Okay, moving on?
Yep.
Okay. I had no substantive changes until, again, if anybody else has anything, by all means, please speak up. Until scope of services.
Yep.
Yours come up at item 4, is that correct?
Item 4.
Core elements under the scope of services, because I had one before that.
I have some minor edits to
Okay.
paragraph 1, but then I have item 4, yes.
Yeah, I think I had, the language you had on item 1, I had some, well, you were going to address that first, item 1? then I
Yeah,
had-
yeah, just basically expanding it to beyond just conduct multiple visioning, and visioning has a distinct connotation of where we're going
Right.
type of things, and I thought it should be also feedback sessions, because that's a different, just
Everybody
more.
good with that?
Well, I mean, my concern was less with the visioning part of it than the sessions part of it. I thought that they should conduct, and it's detailed a little bit below, it's a little bit backward here. Up top, it sounds like the only thing they're going to do is sessions, and then down below, they list a number of things, including surveys, social media, et cetera. So I would have said, conduct multiple visioning, and to include Gary's language, and feedback sessions, and other forms of community outreach. We've heard from some of the other towns that one of the most successful things they did was get creative with their community outreach
Yep.
sessions, whether it be the Kimball's thing or whatever else it was. So rather than just
Doesn't have to be-
telegraphing the message that all we want is, sit-down sessions that nobody comes to.
Does this proposed paragraph 4 begin to cover that?
Mhm.
Proposed paragraph 4?
I had, I kind of expanded on the outreach piece in paragraph 4, Paul.
Yeah, okay.
See if that covers it for you, Paul.
Let me call it up again on my paragraph.
If you'd like, that would be a bit easier, Paul?
Does anyone here ever take a look at someone else's budget? And how much in the scope of services used for outreach, how much of the total budget was used for outreach?
Good question.
There's a heavy emphasis, quite understandably, on outreach.
Okay, I see it proposed.
And what I'm asking...
No, I do not know. I just understood from all the feedback we've been getting is that the journey is as important as the product.
Okay. It turns
more so.
out that advice is anecdotal. Okay, it's...
What advice?
Now we're into another discussion. I don't want to, I don't want to break up our happy group here, but there's...
I've located Gary's suggested paragraph, well, probably in my version doesn't show up
As changes.
as changes, right?
Yeah,
So, I'm fine with that if it gets in, it's just unfortunate that it, we should be making that point right off the bat, I think,
It's Tuesday, right?
as opposed to,
That's fine.
Yeah.
Order is,
so I would just, notwithstanding your points you made in, for the no harm, I think, in just saying visioning sessions in other forms of community outreach.
okay.
How about if we move that paragraph, make it 2? So the proposed paragraph 4 becomes
Either way,
2,
that's fine.
so it raises it...
Just don't want us to get lost in the shuffle.
All right. Are we okay to do that?
Yeah,
All right, Let's
fine.
do that. Move that up to 4, and then 2, 3 drops down.
Also, as a clerk, can I ask the question, you're keeping what we're calling the formal record on that, because you've got both the original document and Gary's changes.
I have it here, plus the stuff that I put on here
I want
also.
to
so-
access that to reflect the
Yeah.
minutes.
And you have it.
I have it, but I don't have it reflecting the changes you're making tonight, obviously.
Well, I'm not typing right here, right now.
You are?
No.
Okay.
Depending on your scribe capabilities, buddy.
I was kind of.
They're pretty good, they're extensive. He can scribe.
Okay, moving on.
Give him a napkin and
We
watch
might have to go
out.
back and watch the tape.
Give him a napkin, yeah.
Paul, did you have anything else prior to this?
No one else can read it.
I don't.
Okay.
No, in fact, we've exhausted my points, well, except for there was one that, we'll go backwards. Pete was too shy to pick up, or to mention
Whoa.
spelling error.
That's the first time anybody ever said Pete was too shy
So I just
about anything.
want to note, we're going to need to go back to subsection 2.
I'm Littleton's trump.
Yes.
We don't need to do it now, Gary's on the
Not
roll.
really.
We'll go through.
Yeah, I want to go with substance, we'll get back to the,
What number are we at so we can?
We're in 5. Scope of services.
5, which 5 is the core elements, and this is where I
all right, one
think...
sec, is everybody caught up?
Yeah.
It's subparagraph 5, core elements?
I understand that we don't want to hold their hand to the process and restrict, hinder creativity. But I think to this point in this document, we have not had a chance to explain a little bit about, much about what it's relative, what makes Littleton tick and where we want their focus to be and this is the place, I think, to do this, is to let them know in each of these areas a little more about, I'm talking 4 sentences, 5 sentences, within each of these sub-elements, what are some of the big drivers? I mean, you heard some of the other towns talk about, in their issues, their towns, they had specific issues they wanted to see addressed, and this is where they helped steer the consultant towards areas of emphasis, and I would like to see us flesh these out, and I'm unfortunately, I cannot provide much depth on this, because I don't necessarily know where the town is, or in some of the background, I just don't have the background in the town to know that, but I do think, I mentioned as an example of the Milton one, which I liked because I thought it just explained and fleshed out in 3 sentences a little more about what they meant in each of those elements. And there's no place else in this document do we really talk about what we want the town, a little more about the town, and I think we get a better, more focused product and proposal if we flesh these out.
So in that paragraph, that became the new paragraph 5, pretty much these are the elements that come out of the statute that have to be covered. Do we need to go any further? Does the rest of the team think we need to go any further in describing more in depth each one of those core elements?
Philosophical disagreement.
Okay.
In looking through the initial batch of RFPs we went early on, the one thing that struck me that I thought was something we could improve on was all these towns writing in great detail about themselves when, it's two-pronged. It's like, well, that's all in the list, all that stuff can be found in the list of reports we tell them to go and access, number one.
Not
That's
necessarily
not
all of it, but
comprehensive.
Well, a lot of it.
fair amount of it.
That's not comprehensive. That was-
Okay,
Right.
but then which raises the second question is, how are we ever going to begin to become comprehensive with this list? I mean, if everybody has their, pet topic, or here, you can slide in 2 or 3 items that, are meaningful to you, but if, or me, but...
I acknowledge the challenge. It's easier to be numb on it than to maybe
This
not
is
hit it, right?
this is where I think that if you had an organizing theme, okay? If you really,
What do you mean if?
No, I'll say if, because this is the place to, if we can, without breaking regulations, relate it to directly.
I do agree that this is the more appropriate place to put anything associated with that is in this area.
As long as it refers back to somewhere where we originally had it, moved it, whatever, and then we bring it up here again, I think that it ties it in without tying anybody's hands.
I think part of the reason it was shorter in the first place is that it's somewhat redundant to Section 2 back under the current goals and status. Not entirely, but the other reason is these topic areas, those that are mentioned specifically in statute.
Not all of them.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Plus
yeah.
a few more, and I don't think there was ever any intent to elaborate on that. Other than that, isn't that kind of the whole point of the whole master plan process?
Yeah. I'd offer, just as you described, Paul, we've listed them, thrown a couple more in there besides what the statute calls for, and if we think we have any more to go through it. So let's just use natural, historic, and cultural resources as an example. But we could go on ad infinitum as to how maybe to expand upon that. I don't think it serves our purpose in the RFP to that. What we want them to do is to address that broad area. And part of how they address it becomes an evaluation piece for us also.
Let me just give you an example for that particular one. And it goes to just trying to get them a little more background on the town. The example one I pulled from Milton talks about natural cultural resources. The preferred consultant should update the inventory of natural and cultural resources in the 1974 master plan and identify strategies for management and protection of these resources.
Okay, so what would you suggest? Did you rewrite the open space plan? Because remember, we're going to make that one of the pillars of this also. This is, and Mike had said it best, I think, earlier on, at the beginning of our process. It's overarching, and realize we have many pillars that support this. And the open space being one of them, the economic development plan, the housing production plan, to name just a few of those that go into this. So this is not a all-inclusive plan. It's overarching, and there's subplots to it, if you will, that go in to support what we want. Now, maybe coming out of this, natural historic cultural resources, and they look at the open space plan, or the next one down, open space and rec, so let me refer to it specifically. They look there, and they look at our open space plan, and they go, well, you know, you're missing a few key elements here. And that's what I'd expect
I'm
them
not
to
looking
come
for
out.
I'm not looking for any particular product to be updated other than the elements of the, in this sample was updates of the old master plan related to this
But
section.
even to be accurate here, on the one you cited, the natural historic, say, what would you propose we include? Something that sounds like Milford?
I just like to see this fleshed out more
Because if we
potentially.
did, say if we did that, then it gets into print, and our historic commission says, well, wait a minute, who said that's our priority? Nobody asked us, so we're gonna ask on each one of these points, go back to each of those committees? I mean, honestly, to get the right priority.
It does make
Because
it-
they would probably
it does
say,
make it harder.
we need
I'm not saying make it
help
harder, they make it
identifying
wrong,
the
it just makes it
projects in
harder.
town that we need to go after CPC money for. That would be their priority, not the updating the list. But we don't know that. You know, I mean, I happen to know in that case, that's probably their priority. But item by item, if we're just gonna guess to elaborate, I think we run the risk of presuming, you know, what other people.
Again, I think it's
priorities are.
I don't want to use the word presumption, but it's presumption in the actual process that they're going and diving into these, into some of the subpoints you just mentioned. What is it that's important to the community gets identified in those interviews, those meetings, those surveys, et cetera. I'm going to offer that we leave the list the way it is, unless we have another element. We seem that the consensus that's built, and if I'm wrong, slap me, that we'd rather not go in any more depth on this list. Is that?
You're looking for consensus or a vote?
Wait,
No vote. I don't think we need to be voting on items like that.
in other words, up to K.
Well, whether we want to add through Z, that doesn't bother
Yeah,
me.
no.
But I think Gary's points were, being more illustrative in each of the subparagraphs. And
I appreciate Gary's point, I really do, but having heard some of the rebuttals, I would personally agree with the rebuttals more than, while I appreciate the point you're making, I think I'm gonna lean towards those guys.
I understand those points. It's a lot harder. We're getting into the process, I think is what you're saying almost,
Right.
as to what you want this guy to do
Right.
by specifying some of this, because it would be a hard thing to do.
It'd be a pretty fine line to walk, that's the other thing, it's just a very thin line that you can easily either not be meaningful at all, and why waste our time, or step over and get into,
Yeah,
you
and
know,
my
jumping the gun.
final
so to
word on
speak.
this subject, and I'm not advocating this, but if we were gonna go that route, I think the appropriate thing we would do is go approach all the
Yeah, right.
primary
And-
groups
and-
that
right,
advocate
and
there.
extend this
and
process
identify
out,
that,
yeah.
and then we can-
I would agree that would probably be the most appropriate way of doing that.
That's
So,
not really time.
that's not something we have the resources or
What are
time
these
to do
groups
so.
you would like to address?
All the other committees.
Which ones?
Right, oh, we'd have to go find them
I don't
first. You're
see
right.
them here, do you?
The,
So Gary, here's, I'd like to, I do want to bring this to closure, and if we want to reattack after we go through the whole document, certainly we can do that. But your expansions, I'm going to suggest that we not include the expansions and just keep, now, sustainability as a subparagraph, I agree with that, and to keep it in there.
Keep sustainability.
Yeah.
Just the word sustainability as a bullet.
Yeah.
Okay?
well, I didn't know if the ones that are not in the statute, maybe we should flesh out the ones that aren't in the statute, because governance, for example, is not in the statute. Fiscal impacts is not in the statute. Maybe we should just flesh out those, because those don't have any overriding guidance to tell you what we mean by those.
no, fiscal impact, I think, is very clear, at least in my mind it was, and that is, you can come up with all the brilliant ideas in the world, what's it going to cost us to do it? So there are fiscal impacts.
And
these
implementation.
anybody that's in this business didn't understand what that meant, we won't be picking them.
Same with governance.
And they wouldn't be in this business, yeah, in the governance, because
governance is
they will go into
bylaws.
statute, they know policy, state policy, they know more emerging policy than we're going to possibly know also. Again, if they're good at their business, as new things come out. You know, with new administration, different policies are coming down from previous administrations, just as examples.
And to that point, I think sustainability, while we can always debate what's the best, but that's what will be debated, is what's the best focus on sustainability in Littleton. I still think it's a generic enough term and used enough that they'll know exactly what we're talking about, and we'll just see if they do a good job of answering it relative to Littleton's sustainability requirements, desires.
Okay, I'm going to ask that we move on,
Okay.
if that debate's done there. Okay, Roman numeral 6, minimum qualifications. Gary, it looks like you don't like the word firm, would like consultants. We all happy with that?
I think that was just to be consistent with previous parts of the document.
We're all happy with that then, good. And we have the 5 years in here, does that go against anything that we talked about earlier about 7 years?
That just indicates they have to have a certain pedigree. They have to have done this before.
So you're still
5
happy
years
with
of
that?
experience. That's all. That was there before.
Okay, so now you you want to bring in at least some primary qualifications, whether it's be an architect or an engineer.
This was related to the comment from legal as to they took out all the stuff that had reference to landscape architecture and stuff like that. And did we want to include some qualification standard for any of the personnel? I just gave this a,
Now let's look at this. Let's
I
just
just
look
gave
at
this
the-
a swear. I don't feel
Yeah.
strongly about this. I just gave it a shot.
I'm going to
Just for
suggest it
this
come
purpose.
out, because when we say architect, what kind of architect? And then engineer, systems engineer, bioengineer.
Life, Lee, I love you.
Because I would think, who that's in this business wouldn't be able to meet that requirement? I mean, that could be our requirement and just, without even, I'd be shocked if anybody showed up that didn't have somebody like that, right? I mean, this is who they are.
Most likely.
This is who
most
joins
likely.
these firms, and if,
And I've seen it, I've seen these kind of things, from personal experience, when you put it in there and you like somebody, but they didn't exactly dot the I, and then you
Yeah.
like,
Right.
I'm fine with taking it out, I just was trying to address the legal
Okay, you
concern of
offered
whether-
it, you're fine, take it out, it's out. Okay, again, and you like the word primary authors in there, fair enough, to have that person available to us. Again, firm out, consultant in, completion by the consultant, we're all there, we've added the 7 years that we talked about earlier. Okay, and then it's still, again, consultant for firm. Okay, so you wanted to add the word, I'm now in subparagraph 6, gents. Significant experience developing, and then Gary added facilitating.
Yeah.
All happy with that? All right. Roman numeral 7, comparative evaluation criteria. Gary, why don't you talk to that a little bit, please?
All right, I'd like to propose that this kind of be looked at, maybe not in this form, because I think we're getting on fumes. Just that, what are the criteria, and making sure that it's list, that we address the really important things that are going to be the discriminators. So, and that the wording is right, so like, for example, the first one talks about staffing plan and methodology. To me, the most important thing is I want to see their general approach, what they've learned about the town and what their methodology for doing this work is, and this whole paragraph talks about, it says staffing plan methodology, but none of the, what I would call rating factors, or talks about methodology. It talks about, the paragraph, the paragraph talks about professional qualifications and expertise, yet the rating factors, advantageous, highly advantageous, or not advantageous, doesn't address the experience. It talks about the plan. So it's a mixed, basically it's a mixed bag.
But what I want to ask the committee, the subcommittee, why was this wording done this way and the structure this way? What was your motivation there?
I haven't compared this to the DCAM model, but I think this is directly out of the DCAM model, with maybe some words. And I don't even think that the words have been changed. Because, for instance, highly advantageous, a complete project that addresses all of the required issues. See that, so that's covering the question that was just raised about, when they come to us with the proposal, are they giving us everything? See, this, highly advantageous, not advantageous, allows us to be incredibly subjective.
I don't have a problem with the rating factors. I just thought that we mixed both the staffing, the methodology and the staffing plan, and I thought maybe that should be discriminated between. You have one talking about the methodology and another one talking about the experience and staffing of the individuals. Basically, I'm supposed to split those out.
Are we allowed to split them out?
One is their proposed approach and how they're going to do it, and the second one is the qualifications of the individuals doing the work. To me, they're two different elements.
Well, staffing plan, certainly qualifications are part of that, but then it's also, I'm going to have 6 of these, 4 of those, 1 of these, and he'll be available .1, .6.
So you're talking about the
FTEs.
methodology of staffing
Yeah.
versus maybe Gary's thinking methodology is the
Your product, your
methodology
scope.
of how you do your business.
What they're going to produce for us, what they're proposing to
Right.
do.
Yeah.
Is this an area that we open ourselves up to, if we award,
Protest?
basically protest, basically, no, you didn't evaluate us properly?
That's not what Gary's talking about.
No,
Gary
no,
has no problem with the framework
Yeah.
overall. He's just saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, that he'd like to see one bullet for staffing plan with highly advantageous, not advantageous criteria, and another bullet for methodology with its own criteria from being determined as highly advantageous,
Well, let me ask you,
and not advantageous.
what do you think the word methodology means here?
I thought it was to be their approach to doing the job.
Right, and I would have thought the same thing.
I agree with the distinction Gary's drawing here. And I think you can look at those things too differently. You can say they have a great plan, but I think their staffing is shaky. Or you might say this is a great team, but their methodology is shaky, and that's tough to reflect that here. The only question I would have, and I know this goes back to our committee members, I think we relied on boilerplate
Yeah.
for that.
Yeah, we
But
did.
is there any reason we can not
okay
change
with-
that?
I'm okay with
Just
adding another-
Make two
yeah.
buttons, two topics.
Yeah, I just don't want to open us up to accusations that
Right.
we've been unfair to
And
someone.
my only question is that this
Yeah.
is going to get run by council again, too, so. you know,
Yeah, I thought we already had been through that.
Well, yes, but we're making changes, so it's going to have to go through.
There we go.
When we use
That was my
this,
point, Gary. It's not,
Right, go ahead, Rich, please.
when we use this type of analysis for the proposers, and when they come to be interviewed, this leaves us the greatest amount of subjectivity. So we can, there's no way that anybody can contest it, because they have to crawl inside your mind, and you can say, well, I just didn't like it.
But splitting the two, that first and
Yeah.
two, that won't change that, right?
It will not change it, no. It'll actually help us.
Well, you're going to rewrite a lot of this criteria then, because when we highly advantageous, the plan of service proposes detailed, logical, creative. All right, let's say if we're just talking about the staffing plan, you could almost leave this and call it the methodology and
Correct.
come up with a staffing plan paragraph now.
Correct. You need to have factors for staffing plan.
Yeah, and that's what you do.
So if that's what we're going to do,
Yeah.
I'd say this methodology remains pretty much unchanged.
Exactly.
Although you do use like minimum qualifications, methodology doesn't have
Well, it
qualifications,
does have
people do.
demonstrated experience and expertise and principal in charge. I mean, that's the
Well, the
staffing
opening
part.
paragraph
Yeah.
needs to be split, but the rating factors, I think, lend themselves to methodology, with some minor edits.
Right.
All right, who's taking on the task to write that paragraph? All
Hey, you brought it up.
Look, all we need to do is give it back to,
I can give it a shot.
right,
all right.
all right, so
Put that Catholicism of 12 years into to work. Thought you slipped that through without the rest of us, huh?
The nun with the stiff cane, ready to.
That's the grammar, that's the grammar.
here's what I'd ask you to do then, Gary. By Friday, get it to the 3 subcommittee members and me and Maren. And then,
Maren and I.
okay,
Now, when we evaluate,
the resident grammarian.
when we evaluate a proposal, it's 3 or 4 proposals, say, are we using paragraph 7 also for us to evaluate?
Where are
them?
you? Well, that's what we have to.
These are our rules by
Roman
which
numeral
we
7.
rate them by.
Okay,
We use
A, B, or C.
okay, that's, again, I'm trying to
So
learn
you're going
this.
to, each of us will see a package, who's ever on the committee to evaluate. we'll look at each of those, and you're going to say it's highly advantageous, somebody else advantageous, or whatever.
Okay.
And
I'm
then
I'm just
everybody's
trying to
gonna get a
learn
piece.
the process here. So,
And we will have, for the folks that will sit on the evaluation team, we will have a training period session for that,
okay.
so that everybody's on the same sheet of music with it, and then that'll come along. All right, so, do we have anything else until we get down to subparagraph 5?
5, well, those who wrote this, is there a perceived or assumed order of priority in how these are ranked? Are these listed? Are they all equal? I assume they're listed in order of importance. That's how I typically see these kind of things. They're not in order of importance.
If we wanted to
We gotta discuss that.
rank them
Yeah.
and weight them,
I wouldn't
Have to
propose any
precisely
kind
do
of,
that.
I wouldn't propose any kind of mathematical weighting, but
Good.
I do prefer seeing some kind of like familiarity with the town of Littleton not being equal to staffing plan or methodology.
so then do you have a different numbering scheme then for these? Want to move one paragraph someplace else?
There's,
Well, if they're all equal, it doesn't make a difference where they are.
Okay,
It's-
continue.
here's what the score sheet would look like.
You got yes.
Each of these will
Rich,
have,
you got yes.
Right.
each of these will have like 20 points.
Horse.
All right,
All you can do is lose the argument now. Already won.
Let's go.
all right, so, all right, so we're down to certificate of non-conclusion, and we don't have to worry about that. Okay, so we've been through the whole docket, folks. And anybody that has some of those administrative changes too,
Oh,
let's score those later on and get them to Maren and me.
such as current
myself.
project
Is
goals.
it the subjunctive case?
I'll
Status.
go with it in myself.
3, instead of 2 asses, it should be 2 assess.
Well,
I guess you're 12 asses.
okay. Are we content with the changes we've discussed this evening with the content of the proposal? Does it communicate what we as the steering committee would like to be able to transmit to prospective bidders?
I guess we didn't go back to the town economics.
Yeah, I mean,
Not
the-
there yet. Hold on. I'm going to walk us up to that paragraph.
Yes, the
Leave it alone.
So do we think the meat of this has our intent?
Yes.
So now, after we've had this lengthy discussion this evening, has a theme emerged that you're content with? Do you want to even open this up with a theme, or let it speak for itself? So I guess there's really 2 questions, so let's answer one at a time. Has a theme emerged?
I don't believe so.
No. It's an RFP for a master plan process. They go out every day.
We've got a lot of specific priorities that are relevant to Littleton in the here and now as we perceive it, but most of those are found under the current project goals and status, and that's where I think we ought to address
See,
that
this-
language.
I'm going to offer this, and it gets to your point, Paul, when you talk about the philosophy as to what should be in these. Some of them we've read, our town is great, beautiful, wonderful, it was founded in 1861.
Right.
And on and on and on. And I think we've come to a consensus that's not necessary.
That's out.
And I've written a heck of a lot of RFPs, and I've been on the respondent to RFPs also, as potential bidder. I don't recall ever opening, here's our theme. And we seem to think that we've not created a theme in what we've written here, and nor maybe do we need one. I get your point, and I understand 100%, Mike. But now, so you become our whipping child for the moment.
Sure, I'll be happy to be.
Do you concur that perhaps we don't need this thematic paragraph?
I think you need, I continue to think you need, and I think we need, if we really want to get this plan, any plan to work with a consultant, I think that we need to have an emphasis, if not in the project background, which is fine. I think it needs at least to be in the current project goals, because I heard nothing but economics. I was probably the only one, as we were marching through this exercise, I heard nothing but economic issues, every single one of them.
Okay.
And we can, what I don't want to end up with is a situation in which we have a consultant who does not bring to the table, I want them to bring to the table the latest analytic tools that allow them to lay out for us and provide help us provide a route to subsequent administrations on how to run the town, how to conduct policy from an economic point of view, because...
And achieve goals.
And achieve the goals.
Right.
And I think that without that as something, I think we're basically doing nothing more than 1970 stuff.
Mike, is this a priority then?
What? Yeah, I mean, I would say a priority, or, I mean, where it goes, to me, current project goals and status may be overstating it a bit. I'm not quite sure where it belongs, but I keep hearing it.
Do we not already include it in paragraph 4 under current goals and status? Does that address what you're trying to get at?
Go about integrate new concepts?
No, I don't think so. That's more about...
I think it
Including a
belongs...
clear assessment of social and economic considerations?
All right.
Could I inject one thing here? What Mike made a statement just now that seemed to capture it all. And as you began to explain what you were trying to achieve here, you hit the nail on the head, because it came through in plain English.
Recapture it for us then.
I can't. Could you do that?
Well, that's
We'll have to
your...
replay the video. Can we replay the video?
Whatever that language is, I would support a one-sentence standalone. I hear what Gary is saying about item 4. It does hint at that. Maybe we delete that part that says including a clear assessment of social and economic considerations, and instead have a statement saying, we especially want to, whatever you said, Mike, we want to underscore the interconnectedness of all issues by economics, and are concerned about having the master plan be implementable and whatever.
If we ended the sentence at sustainability, put a period there.
Yeah, and
And add a new number there that speaks to the assessment of social and economic considerations, or some words thereof. Does that work
In
for
one or
us?
two sentences, yes.
Right. And we already dropped 9 from the bottom of the list, so we don't even increase the length of the list.
That's it. Would you want to take a hack at that, Mike? That
Sure, I
sentence?
just want a little bit more, guidance from the group.
Well, you and I can hand you over a cup of coffee about it.
You-
We're both members of the subcommittee.
That's right, we can do it then.
Let me offer this guidance.
Sure.
We seem to think it belongs in Roman numeral 2.
Right.
We see what is already included in Roman numeral 2 as to the level of granularity each one of those sentences or two are. So capturing within a sentence or two your mindset on the town economics.
Okay.
Difficult in a way, but remember it's somewhat broad brushed for this particular paragraph. Is that something you think you can do?
Yeah, that I can do.
All right. Okay, so that's what we'll ask you to do, and can you have that to us by Friday?
Yeah, that's...
All right, good.
And
Review the video.
Yeah, I'll,
Those-
yeah.
That
One
was
or
a
two
perfect
sentences
sentence.
only, right? That's all you
Yes,
need?
please, sir.
Okay.
That was a perfect
Okay, now what I'd like to do is go back to project
I was going to
background.
expand on that sentence.
So, Gary, John, we're at project background, back up there.
Yeah,
The first paragraph, are we okay with it?
sure.
And it's not until we get to the second paragraph, and I think we're of the line of maybe deleting the paragraph.
Yes,
Okay, we delete that paragraph, Paul,
Yes.
yes.
Talking about this one?
Yes.
and then we keep the original third, and it becomes the second paragraph.
But it's
Correct.
going to, we're going to
And-
add into that the EDC reports, the capital planning report, and the building maintenance plan.
Yep. And if anybody thinks of another one that we've missed,
Yeah.
You know,
One second,
why
one
don't
second,
we
Mike.
put a general
Yeah,
phrase in there to that effect?
I'm looking
Yeah,
at, I'm looking at the
other-
points here at the bottom on number 2. It says high
Hold on.
degree of,
before we skip back
Before
down
we
to
get to
2,
two,
we're at
sorry.
1 first.
Okay.
And let's close on 1 first, please.
Does the school have a similar visioning plan that we should reference here too? It's a huge part of the town.
Yeah, Vision 2020.
Yeah,
Why not?
Yep, for sure.
yeah, good idea.
Yep, I appreciate that, thank you.
Well, you could just do Paul, how about it's a catch-all indicating,
Yes.
go to our website, and if there's anything out there, you can,
Well,
We'll mention the, yeah. we'll
that is
mention
good,
some
but
specific-
still,
anything within the last 5 years or
to
something.
your point earlier about,
John, by the way, remind me the next time Maren misses a meeting, I will also miss it.
to your point earlier, though, about, what's important to us, and these particular plans are important to us.
Correct.
So, all right, John, first, if anybody else have anything on subparagraph 1, or excuse me, Roman numeral 1? All right, John, you want to go back to 2?
Yeah, just real quick here, because you got the points like on item number 1 and not Roman numeral number 2. high degree of originality, so you got the word originality. You got 30,000-foot view. So all of these things you're saying, it seems like you want kind of a theme that says Littleton forward, something that opens people's minds to something. It's kind of open-ended, but it allows them to think.
How about, like, remember, we took 30,000 foot out.
Yeah, and we added to the
Right.
high degree of
Okay, but
originality.
you still got here, originality, kind of
Probably-
things that are open-ended.
Probably the third one should probably be the first one.
Yeah, that's fine, because we talked about reordering these and didn't do anything, but I would agree with that. That makes sense.
Then, Paul, you're going to expand on one with other words you have, and I was going to take a cut at number 2 to address what Richard was trying to get at, that we're part of a regional regional. We don't just look at us in a myopically. We need to look at us holistically at the overall region, and I'll make a cut at that.
All right, so John, if we move paragraph 3 to the first one, does that begin to address your concern?
Yeah, I mean, it's fine, but you got here like going forward, all these different, I forgot it was adjectives or something. But the thing is, then the theme, I'm gathering from reading this, is like Littleton forward. We're looking like, what do we want to do going forward?
Uh-huh.
It's in there.
Yep. Yep.
Details
I mean,
about-
And it's covered here in the first paragraph of the project background, too,
Right.
basically.
And it's in this one, too, in number 5, details on what we want and how we're going to pay for it going forward. So your
Which
words
brings-
are there.
Yeah, if I could just,
Keep bringing economics.
But I'm
Bring up that
substituting
question.
town economics.
yeah, because as far as I can make, number 5 is sort of is a piece of a piece of a piece of economics. So if it's all right with you guys, could we drop 5? And I can incorporate that indirectly or directly into whatever I'll be doing to bring economics back
I
into
don't
the
have a
thing.
problem. That's good.
Yeah,
It
'cause
says
that-
it pretty simply. I don't have a problem keeping it as it is, but give it a shot.
No, here's why I'm thinking no.
Go ahead.
gents. Is, you're right about economics, and in some ways, the original theme of town economics, but I think that's a bit more detailed on how you actually pay for it. And I'd really like them to look at some of these things of, so, let me try and come up with a good example here.
How we pay for land, you mean? Stuff like that.
Let's use that. It comes out that through all this, people want more open land, would like the town to buy more land, that if they were to come up with some suggestions on, because we already know we've got tax revenue we can use, we know we've got CPC money, we know we have federal grants, state grants.
Sources and priorities?
Tax revenue we can get.
Trustees such as Sudbury Valley Trust, and organizations such as that, and they may have other ideas that we've missed the boat on how to pay for particular
Okay,
things. So I'd say,
so you want sources as well as you want sources and priorities?
I think for them to identify sources in a master plan is useful to a point, because the source can change in year 2 and it no
Yes.
longer exists.
Yes.
So to list a specific source, it's like writing the law into a policy. When the law changes, the policy has to change, and you don't want that,
Oh,
because it
you
could
don't
simply
want that.
be in accordance with the applicable statute, and
Plus-
then move on.
Economics is not simply how we pay for things either.
No, it isn't.
It's a much broader
Oh,
concept.
yes.
Okay, so we content then, leave it, but you still come up
I'll
with...
still come up with
All right,
something.
good. Okay, here's what I want to do then. This has been very productive, but I do want to go around the room one at a time, and everybody gets an opportunity for some reattacks. Mike?
Good.
Oh,
Rich.
boy, this was a great
Okay.
project.
Mike?
I have reservations, but let's go.
Okay. Peter? Paul?
Gonna need some collaborative help to make sure this final document reflects what we did, but other than that,
Mary?
I'm happy.
You get it? Peter, Paul, Mary, but never mind.
Happy to help
John?
fact check it.
Been learning.
I think I've spoken enough tonight.
Okay. Public?
Just one suggestion.
No.
If you take the town economics out and
Yeah.
put in future goals, then the whole thing, that whole paragraph reads pretty good, because you're looking at the future goals of the town.
Which paragraph?
It's the one that.
Oh, we gotta keep-
Town economics.
Okay. Scares everybody, okay.
And can you also try and leave the, stealing from Peter to pay Paul? If I hear that one more time, I'm gonna be broke again. So,
No, it's funny, I have no problem with that at all,
yeah, I'm pretty sure
actually.
you don't.
All right.
And by the way,
Hold on.
Wait.
We owe Bob an answer.
Yeah.
What do we think, folks?
No,
I think we moved on.
yes. Hear you, but
It was painful enough to get here, so I think we moved on.
Here we go. We have our first public input. No.
is that how it goes?
I
we
think our
don't, Coach.
consensus was that the economics is, we agreed on that, it's just how do we incorporate it into the document? I don't think anybody's arguing that we should.
All right, Maren was very generous, and she said September 25th. I was less generous. I'm asking for this Friday, and let's see, do a little public math. What's tonight, the 15th?
Yep.
So 16, 17, 18, by the 18th?
Reminder emails, prodding might be helpful,
All right.
Mr. Chairman.
So this goes to you and
Can I
Maren.
get to my edits by the weekend? I'm sorry, I don't know if I get it to you by Friday.
All right, fair enough.
Monday.
Close of business Sunday, so we have it
Sunday you
for
have it.
Monday morning.
Yep.
Okay, folks?
Not the end of day Monday.
So that'd be the 20th then.
Thank you.
Okay.
I thought this was a great process, very edifying. I would like to thank Gary. He obviously
Yes.
spent an inordinate amount of time on this, and, and I also appreciate your back and forth and willing to compromise. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, and then, as I say, there's, some other folks have some administrative thoughts. Include those in your comments by this Sunday. Here's what I ask, and everybody that's here tonight, at the very least, if it's negative comments, send me an email, negative comments. So that way I know you at least thought about it and had no thoughts. Okay?
I'm sorry,
Oh,
regarding...
negative on the comments.
If you have no comments,
Just send
send
an
me a
email.
note,
saying
negative comments.
Yeah, negative as in none,
No.
no comments.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't force terminology there.
Negative comments means I have negative
Or
comments.
you can say I got no comments.
This is awful. Who wrote this?
There you
How
go.
can negative comments be no comments?
Look the switch over your left shoulder there. Richard, so
No,
I can
we,
see-
we,
And there is NSTR, nothing significant to report to if you want to use it.
we're not doing a Westford update because Melissa's not here,
Right.
correct?
We're doing
Next
24,
steps,
so.
I have a question on that, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
Are you anticipating scheduling soon, reviewing the existing master plan? I know
Yes.
a lot of folks just want this digitally. I think there's rare cases, this being one of them, when it's nothing better than get your hands on the pieces of paper and flipping it around. I'll be using a hard copy, but,
Well, Maren did ask everybody if they want a hard copy,
And
and people responded.
Yeah.
And those that wanted one were able to get one. Did you get yours?
no, I didn't get mine. That's why I'm assuming nobody got
Oh,
theirs.
yeah, we got ours.
I got one.
We
I
will,
haven't read it.
I have the copy from 12 years ago, so I do have one.
All right, tell you what.
Yours is worth some money, it's an original.
no, I think what we do is we just ask for his address, we'll send him a registered copy, U.S. first-class mail.
Wait, here you go. I got digital.
Oh,
I can probably go down, no, I want you to have a hard copy, Mike. I've got one of those too. I've already
I
got
don't
one
want
of
to hear
those.
you bitch anymore. Just take it and,
Okay,
you're gonna lose the
You
argument.
don't
on
have,
it.
what is it you don't have?
I
It
didn't
doesn't
say
have
I didn't have
satisfaction.
it. I wanted to know when it was being scheduled, and I wanted to make sure that
Oh, I'm
everybody
sorry,
had it.
all right. That's fine.
Software?
Oh, now it goes back. So you lost the argument.
No, I won the
Why
argument.
can't I code?
Mike, do you have?
Yeah, I do.
Here's what we're going to attempt to do. By you folks getting inputs by the 20th, and then I'll work to compile as best I can, get Maren to help also when she's back from vacation. Our next meeting is September 29th. So we all content with that?
Yeah, Marin's back when, the 22nd or something?
Yeah, so about something like that. She went for 2 weeks or so.
Yeah.
So,
2 weeks.
yeah.
Go to Montana, it takes about a week to get there, Peter.
Big sky
I tell you,
country.
it's,
4 days,
believe it or
I
not,
think.
getting to Great Falls is not all that hard.
Yeah.
Through Salt
You know
Lake
what's
or
even worse?
Detroit.
Getting out of here. Let's go.
I'm willing to listen to it.
I move that we need to be adjourned.
I won't be able to do
Second.
September 29th.
flies.
All those in favor?
Wait.
Aye.
Aye. Oh, who made the motion? I gotta write this stuff down. Who made the motion?
Mike made the motion, I second it.
Mike Fontanella and Pete Scott.
All arm wrestled, we all beat him to the punch the second.
I made the motion.
If he's not home, I'll swing over.
But you can
Clerk's
attribute it to
prerogative,
him.
I get to pick who said what.
Flick the switch.
We were watching an F-22.